Hey guys, guess what? Sounds like the trades are heating up. So it is just me, Sam Wallace, for this episode. And we have quite a bit of trades to discuss because it feels like the trade deadline is here already before the Four Nations face off, but technically it isn't. And the reason why is because lots of trades has happened in the past couple of days. So we're definitely going to take quite a bit of time doing that. And yeah, it's again just me because Sam Driscoll is out of town. So you'll probably see me. Might have a guest for the next episode, might not, but you'll plan on just having me for this episode and also for Friday's episode. So a few things I do want to get to is one, it is that we have a great partnership with SeatGeek. You get $20 off of your first purchase. Just use promo code Caniac Reports, all one word. And this doesn't have to be just for a Hurricanes game, but this can be for any event that is happening in a venue near you. It can be Lenovo if you're here in Raleigh. It can be Red Hat Amphitheater. It could be any place that is hosting any type of concert or and if you want to use that, feel free to use that because you're getting some money off of your ticket with that. So another thing too is we also have a link for donations. So if you feel like you want to donate to us, there is a link for that in both our YouTube description if you're watching me on YouTube, and also in the traditional podcast side of things like Apple and Spotify. Again, if you donate to us, one thing I just want to say is thank you for your help. Really appreciates this. This does go toward making the podcast better for you guys. And also remember, if you are watching this on YouTube, be sure to hit that like and subscribe button, hit that notification bell so you never miss another episode. And if you are listening to us through Apple, Spotify, whatever, please leave a rating, a review, and be sure to follow us because it really does help us out a lot. So, now that the podcast stuff is all out of the way with, and we're now going to officially get to all the trades that happened. So it's fun. I like trades because it creates drama, and uh, I love it. I really do. So quite a few trades. One trade that we're going to cover first is the Philadelphia Calgary trade. And this is a trade where I thought really, honestly, I thought it benefited both teams very, very well. So Philadelphia gets Andrei Kuzmenko, Jacob Pelletier, I could pronounce that wrong, and then a second round pick for 2025's draft and a seventh round pick in 2028 draft. So I think Philadelphia, what they had to give up to get those assets, I would say, is Joel Farabee and Morgan Frost. Those are two young players going to Calgary, and I just want to say this: both players, very young. I think there is upside for both Frost and Farabee. Farabee, I think, is having a bit of a down season in Philadelphia, and to me, that's kind of the theme of this trade. Quite a few players kind of having down seasons, and hopefully with this trade, both teams will benefit from with these players having a change of scenery. So there's the Farabee player, and then there is Morgan Frost, who has 25 points in 48 games, carries a $2.1 million cap hit. If you want to know about Farabee, he had 19 points, 8 goals, 11 assists, and 49 points. But Farabee, he's gotten up to 50 points before, and I think he can be a 40-point player. Definitely see top 9 potential forward in him. And Morgan Frost, he's a center, so centers are usually a little bit more coveted when it comes to getting traded. And I think Calgary getting two young guys and Farabee and Frost did pretty good there. So with Philadelphia getting Kuzmenko, having a bit of a down season, but I do think he is a top 6 forward. I think he is a very excellent forward. He's mainly known for, I think, his playmaking ability. He does have some scoring touch, though, and I think Philadelphia is definitely getting a top six forward, even though, again, having a bit of a down season. Hopefully, that change of scenery really does help them. And with Jacob Peltier, uh, in 23 games, 4 goals, 7 assists, 11 points. Not bad for him. He's a young player that Calgary had. That's now with Philadelphia. So he might have some top six potential. And also, Philadelphia gets some draft capital, a second round pick, which is pretty good, and then a seventh round pick, which is kind of sounds like a throw in, sounds like a sweetener from just looking at the value of the pick. Again, I'm looking at these trades at Puckpedia, and Puckpedia says that the pick value is a 0.14, and a second round pick is 5.7. So it's definitely on the point scale for Puckpedia. But I think that trade really does suit well for both teams. So I say a pretty good trade for both. We'll see how Philadelphia does. Philadelphia is a team in our division. And as you guys have probably noticed, if you have seen these trades, a lot of these teams are in our division that are making these trades. And Carolina was the one that started it, believe it or not, because of the whole Rantanen and Taylor Hall trade, which is pretty fun, I think. And the next trade that we are going to get to that I want to talk about is the Dallas and San Jose trade. As you probably noticed, I'm not going in like chronological order because I do want to talk about a Pacific trade that I probably have some passion on just because it involves a divisional rival that we have seen and met in the playoffs. So I really want to get to that trade and delve a little bit more into that. So the Dallas and San Jose trade. To me, this is a trade that made sense. You have Mikael Granlund, who's playing very good in San Jose. He goes to Dallas, 52 games, 15 goals, 30 assists, 45 points. Carries a $5 million cap hit. And Cody Ceci, who I think is a good top six defenseman. He has 15 points in 54 games, 4 goals, 11 assists, 15 points. He's not known for his offense, never really has been, but he's good for his mostly defensive play. So these are two players that are pretty good, and I think Dallas, you can tell they are in win now mode, and this trade made sense for them if you look at what they gave up for it. And they gave up a first round pick to San Jose and a fourth round pick with a condition of it going to be a third round pick if Dallas reaches the Stanley Cup final. You can tell Dallas is all in, and I think they should because I think with the addition of Granlund and Cody Ceci, they are definitely, I think, one of the favorites of winning the Stanley Cup. And if they do win the Stanley Cup, I would hate it if they were versing Carolina. But if they didn't, I'd probably be pulling for them because I think Dallas is probably one of the deepest teams out in the West. And Dallas, I'm telling you, they just got better. They really did. I really like that trade for Dallas. Proves that they are all in, and San Jose is all in on rebuilding. So again, a trade where it could benefit both teams, and that's what these GMs are going for. Let's see, because in order to make a trade, you gotta think, well, what do they want? So you always have to give up something, and that's what happened in the Mikko Rantanen trade. We had to give up a guy in Martin Netchus, but do I like that trade? Yes, because we got the better player. And that's kind of the mindset these GMs have. It's not just Carolina, it's all other 31 teams in the NHL. And the other trade that I want to get to, I'm probably going to have to combine these trades here because I am going to be looking up all these trades here via Puckpedia. Just want to say, Puckpedia, I know they're not sponsored, but so far I'm really liking their website. And one trade is the big trade. We all knew JT Miller was on the move, and he does get traded. He gets traded to the New York Rangers. And to me, this is a team, and I tweeted this out because I believe I said this before I tweeted it out, but I really do think at the heart of it, it's very true. You have two desperate teams making a desperate move. Vancouver, they're desperate because they don't want Jim Rutherford. I know is over there. Um, can't remember their GM's name, but because Rutherford is not their GM, but I mean Rutherford helps consults these trades, obviously. And he knew that the chemistry between Miller and Pedersen was dead, basically. And he knew he had to trade at least one of them. And it turns out JT Miller was traded. And a funny thing, so there is someone pretty popular out in the hockey world that is a Vancouver fan. And I remember watching his videos. He's the hockey guy, Shannon. And whoops. And he actually said that Pedersen was at his best this season when JT Miller was out. So maybe this trade does help Vancouver in some sort of way. Vancouver to me is an interesting team, and we'll explain why in the next trade that they make. But just looking at this trade alone, I mean, they get a first round pick, which is top 13 protected. Funny. I kind of found that funny considering that I don't know if you guys remember if you're still a Hurricanes fan back then, but Patrick Marleau was traded to Carolina along with a first round pick. The difference between the conditions between the pick that's going to Vancouver and what went to us is that the Toronto first round pick had a condition of being top 10 protected. And turns out Toronto, because that was COVID year, they got knocked out by Columbus and ended up being 13th. And because of that, we drafted Seth Jarvis. So that turned out to be a very good trade for us. And I think that's, to me, the best trade that Don Waddell at the time made. I know we made a trade before with Don Waddell. I think a trade history of Don Waddell as an episode before. So if you want to dive more into that, we do have an episode. I believe we released that quite some time ago. So might have to keep scrolling until you find it. But we did make a trade history on Don Waddell's time. And I do want to say best trade. And I think part of the reason why we drafted Seth Jarvis is part of that condition that's going to Vancouver, which was 13th, up to 13th position being protected in the first round. So, obviously, I do think the Rangers won this trade because they get the better player in JT Miller. They get, and JT Miller, he carries an $8 million cap hit. In 40 games, 9 goals, 26 assists, 35 points. They also get Jackson Dorrington, who's a prospect. And they get, I would say, probably that of a bit of a project in Eric Brandstrom. He's 25 years of age, so he's still a little bit young. Carries a $900,000 contract. And in 28 games, 3 goals, 5 assists, and 8 points. So Rangers, they get a bit of a project, I would say, a prospect, and a very good player in JT Miller. Vancouver, I actually kind of liked what they got. And then to me, I thought they kind of messed it up with the next trade. But they get Philip Hedl, who I think has top 6 potential. I think he is a very, very good player. He's at 25 years of age, carries a $4.437 million contract. And in 41 games, he has 11 goals, 9 assists, 20 points. Is he having a bit of a down year? Yeah. But I think with Vancouver, I think he's definitely going to get top 6 minutes. And I think that could work out for Vancouver. They also get a young defenseman in Victor Mancini, 22 years of age, carries an $870,000 contract. He hasn't really played that much, and they obviously get the first round pick too. I thought Vancouver, I mean, I think that's a pretty decent trade, but again, it's a desperate move because of that. And I think it's a desperate move for the Rangers because they want to get back into a playoff contention. And especially after trading their own first round pick and a young centerman, yeah, do they get the best person, JT Miller? Absolutely. But this causes their window to be a little bit more thin in the win now moment because you now have lots of players in your top six who are over the age of 30. So if the Rangers don't make it into the playoffs this year, one, that could be a little bit costly for the Rangers. And I could totally see the Rangers, even though, I mean, the pick is top 13 protected. One, I think there's a good chance of them being outside of the top 13 in the draft. So they're in danger of losing the first round pick, in which they already gave up a young guy, Filipino. So there's that. And let's say they do get a top 13 pick. Well, you know what? The 2026 first round pick for that draft is unprotected. So either way, this is a very desperate move from the Rangers. And yeah, they get the best player, but I just don't know if they've lost 3 games in a row. So there's no guarantee they're going to make the playoffs with this trade. Do I think it makes them better now? Yes. But they're putting a lot of their future in jeopardy with this trade. They absolutely are. So that's my take on that trade. And then the last trade I want to get to, and listen, I knew I was going to be covering quite a few trades in this episode for quite some time. So that's why we're at the 16-minute mark. I haven't covered the Hurricanes, but I will cover the Hurricanes. But the next trade, which is the last trade, is Vancouver trades that first round pick they got from the Rangers to Pittsburgh. And I thought Pittsburgh did very good because they got a first round pick. They got a couple of depth players. And I think that's perfect for Pittsburgh because I think Kyle Dubas, if I was him, I'd be doing the same thing. They need to go on some sort of a rebuild, and this indicates that, especially with what they gave up. Because with Vancouver, they got Marcus Patterson, carries a $4.25 million contract, 28 years old. And I do think he's a top 4 defenseman. Is he going to help Vancouver now? Yes. It's just, to me, with Vancouver trading that first round pick, I was like, okay, obviously you guys are probably in win now mode, but can you? It just seems there's no direction with Vancouver. It's either they're in, maybe they're trying to pick order, but maybe they're not. It's just, it seems like they're always in that mushy middle in terms of the direction from the management. That's how I see it. So I just thought that was a weird trade from Vancouver's standpoint of trading a first round pick. But they also get Drew O'Connor, who I think is going to be a bit of a project. He's 26 years old, $925,000 contract, 16 points in 53 games. Apparently, they're talking extension with O'Connor, but I just don't know if he's going to be worth more than anything. And that's pretty much all the trades. So lots of stuff happening. Very, very fun. And at this point in the episode, what I'm going to do is I am going to go to a sponsor, and then we're going to talk about the Hurricane stuff. This ain't the little itty bitty teeny tiny bowl. This is the Super Bowl 59. Get in on the action at DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of Super Bowl 59. Scoring touchdowns is key to hoisting the Vince Lombardi Trophy, and you have a shot to score big by betting on them at DraftKings Sportsbook, the #1 place to bet touchdowns. New DraftKings customers can bet $5 to get $200 in bonus bets instantly. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app and use code THPN. That's code THPN for new customers to get $200 in bonus bets instantly when you bet just $5. Only on DraftKings Sportsbook, the crown is yours. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. In New York, call 8778-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY 467-369. In Connecticut, help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org. Please play responsibly. On behalf of Boot Hill Casino and Resort in Kansas, 21 plus age and eligibility varies by jurisdiction. Void in Ontario. New customers only. Bonus bets expire 168 hours after issuance. For additional terms and responsible gaming resources, see dkng.co/audio. Okay, so first things I want to talk about before we get to the game. Hurricanes are obviously suffering an illness. They are. And I thought we saw some of that in the Kings game, which is the only game we're going to be recapping because that's the only game that's happened between our last episode and now. But the illness that they're having, does it suck? Yes. I really hate it for the players. I noticed after the Kings game that Brenda Moore didn't sound great either. So it's definitely affecting the team. And I mean, I do have some sympathy for the players because they are going through something. I thought it showed in that Kings game, but the biggest thing for me is that, listen, you're still playing the game. You still got to give 100%. And I know this might sound harsh, but I'm taking it into account. Yes, they do have an illness, but they also have games to play, and you got to win those games no matter what. So, again, I'm just hearing a lot about this illness. I hope it goes away. I really I really do hope it goes away. But they need to not let that affect them. If they still have games to play, then they need to play to win, no matter the cost. So I'm not trying to be harsh, really not. But you got to win despite the illnesses they're having, and part of that was, well, I mean, so Svechnikov was called out. Well, not called out, but he was out of the game against the Kings because apparently he was out for an upper body injury, and that got us all concerned. I was like, "Oh no, this ain't good." But apparently, Brendan Moore, he said that he was held out for precautionary reasons. And when I heard that, I'm like, "Okay, that makes me feel a little bit better." But I do wonder what's going on with him physically. Obviously, there is the illness, so I wonder if, I mean, is that part of the injury? Is the illness? I mean, I could see it, but at the same time, if it was an upper body injury, then you would think it's an actual injury that he is trying to rehab or whatever. So we'll see how Svechnikov does, but that made me just a little bit nervous. Really did. And obviously, before the game too, Riley Stillman was sent down. And when I saw that, I was like, okay, so there may be some good signs because if you guys remember before the LA Kings game, and it was the Chicago game where both Taylor Hall and Sebastian Aho were out. Well, it turns out they were back in to face the Kings, which is good, especially for Aho's sake, just because I think Aho and Rantanen, they need all the games possible to gain some chemistry. And I thought the game against the Kings was a good starting point. Obviously, you probably want the chemistry to probably maybe be a little bit better, but I am giving them some leeway and the team some leeway too, because one, they're battling through illness, and apparently the ice conditions weren't really that good in the LA Kings game. But regardless, they still needed to win. So that is, I mean, I would say that's pretty much it for Hurricanes news. One thing I will say, and I'll explain it more in the game, is that Dmitry Orlov was kind of called out from Brindamore after the game. And I think he kind of did deserve it because there were a couple plays where he did not use his defensive responsibilities and let Kevin Fiala get around him for goals. But we'll get to that because that's pretty much it for Hurricanes news. Not really anything much. No, not another trade happened, but it's just pretty light on Hurricanes news recently. And now we're going to get to the LA Kings game. What first things first? This has nothing to do with the game, but for those who were at the game listening to this, probably knows this. And boy, that I forgot her name, but the woman that sang the national anthem, boy, she had a voice. I just wanted to mention that she was amazing. I'm not saying the others were bad. It's just like, wow, that was a heck of a performance. But the first period, I thought the Canes played very good. Really did. You had a goal from KK, who has been playing amazing. Please continue to play like this, KK. Please, because even though I'm not saying that he's automatically a second line center, yeah, he's certainly playing like it. And if he continues to be like this, I would say probably until season's end, that like maybe we found our second line center. I'm just not there yet with him because he still has a lot to prove, but at least he is showing signs of being that second line center. He has the tools for it. I've said it before. It's just a matter of putting in that finishing product. So he's a big guy, and he really does has that size of being a great second line center. So he definitely used that. It was a great tip from him. And to be honest, one of the new players, Taylor Hall, I am really, really liking his game because if you look at this whole sequence of KK getting that goal, I would argue that sequence was started by Taylor Hall. He created a 2-on-1 chance. Was he able to get a pass off? No, he wasn't. But he was able to get the rebound off of his pass it to Ghost, who passed it to Walker, slap shot, and KK was able to tip it. Great goal, 1-0. And Carolina, I thought again, first period, I thought was honestly their best period. They had tons of chances, just couldn't convert. And one thing I do want to say too, in the first, well, not the first specific line, and that's the Ranson and Aho Blake line. I think that line could have scored plenty goals, plenty. And for a moment, I thought we did because, funny enough, we thought Aho got a goal, but it was clear that the officials, and I heard it too, the officials blew the play dead with their whistles uh, before Aho actually scored. And I did see what happened, and I do agree with what the officials called as it was ruled a hand pass. And Blake never did touch the puck. It was Taylor Hall. I believe it. No, maybe it was Mikko Rantanen. Can't remember which one of our players touched the puck, but it was not Blake who touched it. So again, it's ruled a hand pass because he did try to bat the puck out of the air with his hand. So I agree with the call. Hated it for that line, but you have Philip Denault scoring with LA, and this is what caused lots of controversy. And I do agree. I do not think the refs were good this game. Flat out did not. But regardless, Carolina, I would say they probably should have won considering the next two games you're playing against the best team in the league against Winnipeg and also a very good team against Minnesota who shut Carolina out recently, if you remember that game. So Philip Denault scores. And what caused this was Warren Fogle, who was being very aggressive on the forecheck, was trying to obviously get to a puck that Orlov had behind the Hurricanes' own goalie. Well, Fogle took him down, and do I think it was like he egregiously took him down? No, but there was enough for a penalty to be warranted. There was. I don't know why there was no penalty there, but that forced Orlov to make the pass out right in front of Anderson. who I think did not have a good game. He really did not. I think to me that was the biggest difference was that Darcy Kemper was better than Frederick Anderson. He just was, and to me that was the difference. And I think some difference too was the fact that Carolina didn't really make the most out of their chances. Was there some puck luck involved? Maybe, but those were mainly the goaltending situation, and some of it dealing with not finishing the chances that Carolina got. So 1-1, and honestly, that Denote goal, I think Anderson should have had. He had a pretty big hole that he left open right above his shoulder, and Denote was able to put it right above his shoulder into the net. And I'm just like, Anderson, gotta have that. You really do. Even though there should have been a penalty, you still got to play. So 1-1 heading into the second period. It's a little bit deflating just because of all the chances Carolina got. They got lots of chances, but they just couldn't convert. But second period, you had Trevor Moore scoring. I think that goal was more of just a little bit. I think out of all four of the goals, that's the goal that I don't really fault Anderson too much on. That's because there was some puck luck. I believe it hit Taylor Hall's stick and back to Trevor Moore as he just basically was able to get the rebound and score there on Anderson. Short side, believe it or not, Anderson does let in short side goals quite a bit. We saw it in the playoffs last year. But it's 2-1. LA's up. And then it is 3-1 with Kevin Fiala scoring. And to me, this is where, Orlov started to not play good because listen, Fiala is an excellent player. He has tons of speed, has an excellent shot, but Orlov didn't really play good defense there as he kind of let Fiala skate right behind him. And I've noticed this with Orlov. I've even noticed this with Burns. Is the fact that these players, out of all the players that we have on D, are the ones that get beat the most. They are. And like I'm trying not to be nitpicky with the Hurricanes here because again, they were sick. I had to take consideration to the fact that they were and the ice wasn't good, but I do wonder if we get eliminated in this year's playoffs. I wonder how much of contribution that would be with the lack of foot speed on the blue line, specifically with Burns and Orlov, because they've been beaten a lot this past season, and Orlov just could not keep up with Kevin Fiala and Anderson. I mean, could Anderson have done something? I think he could have, considering that he kind of put himself out of position. So while I blame more of that goal on Orlov for not defending than Anderson, Anderson should not be way out of his goal just to give Fiala an open net, because Fiala is that heck of a player. If he has an open net chance that he's going to convert, he's going to convert. He's that good of a player. So that's disappointing, and it's 3-1 LA heading into the third. Very, very discouraging. But I mean, and honestly, I would say probably toward the end of the second period and heading into the third, LA I thought had most of the game under control, even though Carolina had little furies here and there of creating chances. But this is also a team in LA who came in pretty angry because they had lost the last 4 games, I believe. So they were on a skid heading into Carolina. And from what I've heard is that LA is a pretty streaky team. So in the third, there is some hope though, because you have Eric Robinson, my nickname for him, and I credit this to Trip Tracy, Swiss Family Robinson, because I love that nickname. But he scores from an excellent pass from Burns. And you know what? I thought the Burns Slavin pair was pretty good against the Canes this game. So that's good. And again, I think Slavin, he's obviously, I think, the best of the two. Uh, it's just sometimes Burns, uh, again, like I said, can get beat, but they had a good game, and I thought Burns had a good game as well. Obviously, with that assist, he got, I believe, 900 points in his career now as a defenseman. Gosh, what an accomplishment that Burns has made. Because only, I believe, I could be wrong, because I thought I saw that he's like the 13th defenseman in NHL history to get 900 points. Wow. That is freaking amazing. Um, so there's some hope. And then obviously you have Kevin Fiala scoring again. And to me, that's the worst goal I have probably seen Anderson try to save. Anderson was completely out of position. And again, he gets around Orlov. He does. And Rod took notice of that. I could tell because after that goal, I think he pretty much benched Orlov. I didn't see Orlov much out there after that goal, which makes sense. He was not having a good game. I would do the exact same thing. But ultimately, Carolina, they just could not convert on I believe they had like, what, 2 power play goals? I think they could have had more because I thought there were some penalties that LA made that the refs didn't call. But regardless, you gotta make do with what you got, and they only got two power plays, and that's, I mean, you see the additions in Ranton and Taylor Hall. You would think it would get better, and I do think it will. But man, this power play is just so struggling right now. And it is interesting knowing that Martin H's isn't on this team anymore because I think his absence is more noticeable when the Hurricanes are on the power play now, just because they don't have that player in Netches that can just transition from neutral zone to the offensive zone. So they're going to have to do a little bit more teamwork in trying to get the puck into the offensive zone. But regardless, I think it will get better. But man, I I I mean, as I'm saying that, there's a little bit of doubt in my mind that it won't, just because of how bad it's been. So, but ultimately, you never know. And I do think the Hurricanes. Listen, this was a loss where I was frustrated with after the game, but hopefully, to me, the big thing that I do think contributed to this too was, I mean, they were ill. Am I frustrated with all this illness talk? Maybe, but I do have to take that into consideration. I think we all have to, but hopefully they can get over this illness thing, have all players healthy, and I mean, their next games, I mean, they have 3 more games left until the Four Nations tournament. So you're at Winnipeg on Tuesday, at Minnesota on Thursday, and then Saturday should be a fun one. 1 p.m. game on Saturday here against Utah. So I think that's going to be a fun game. But if I were to say my expectations for the next 3 games, I would say get 3 points out of the next possible 6. And I think if they can do that, then I think this team deserves the 2-week break. Obviously, some of the players on the Hurricanes won't get that break because they are actually in the Four Nations face-off. But if they do still have that illness for the remainder of the week, at least they have a 2-week break. But I hope this team gets over that. I do think they will, though. And we'll see how they do against Winnipeg. It's going to be a tough game. Really is. But Hurricanes have surprised us before. So, yeah, we will see you guys Friday.